That is so that other document custodians that did not have the benefit of attending today will be able to hear the question and answer session, so that if you have questions that are specific to your group of document custodians, they'll be able to hear that. Now, if you're not a document custodian, but you are another user of the portal, or maybe an organization administrator and another business partner type, you are still welcome to participate with us today. The content is going to be extremely similar to what we would give to any other group, and hopefully you'll be able to benefit. So, my name is Letitia Jefferson. I am the Customer Experience Group Lead at MyGinnieMae in the Office of Securities Operations, and I am joined today by a few experts at the Bank of New York Mellon. Wade Gale and Tawhid Ali are here to also participate and answer your questions. So let's go ahead and begin. So we're going to give you a few objectives that we hope to accomplish today, run down an overview of the portal and what it is and what's changing. And then we're going to talk to you about how to respond to invitations that you're going to be receiving via your email to register for an account. We'll have a video demonstration of how you're going to do the activities that you need to conduct as an organization administrator. Talk to you a little bit about how to troubleshoot some items that you might encounter and some error messages. And then we're going to talk to you about how you prepare for getting the users in your organization into MyGinnieMae. We will open it up for a question and answer session at the end, but there is a chat box at the bottom of the screen. If you have a question, you're welcome to type it in there, and we'll try to get to that question if we can during the training event. However, we will open up for Q&A and answer all the questions that you might have during that session before we close out today. Next slide. Okay, so what are we going to do? Today, we are going to speak to our organization administrators. We're going to give you a high-level overview of MyGinnieMae, the portal, some of its general features. And then we're going to get specific about how you register for your own account in MyGinnieMae. And then we're going to talk to you about how you help your end users at your organization, the folks that need access to GMAP and GinnieNet and other modernized applications, how they get access to MyGinnieMae. So we'll give you some instructions and a demonstration on how to do that. And then, like I said, some troubleshooting tips on if you get into trouble as you're trying to onboard users or they're getting error messages, you know, how you can avoid some of those problems and how you can get past them if you happen to encounter them. Next slide. So let's talk about what MyGinnieMae is. There are some myths out there that I want to dispel right now. MyGinnieMae is a portal that has enhanced security and a single point of entry to get to all of the MyGinnieMae business applications. It introduces this concept of single sign-on, which means you only need one username and one password to get to all of the MyGinnieMae business applications. No longer do you need a separate username and password for each system. So MyGinnieMae has a really secure front door. It's like a house. And inside of the house are all of the business applications that you need to do business with MyGinnieMae. It has our legacy systems, GMAP 1.0 and GinnieNet, which are untouched. They remain intact as they were if you were logging into them directly. It also has our modernized applications like the multifamily pool delivery module and the access management console, which our organization administrators use to onboard and manage end users into MyGinnieMae. All of those systems and applications are housed in MyGinnieMae. So what will happen is you'll have one username, which is your email address, and one password with a one-time PIN that you will enter when you go to MyGinnieMae, and that will get you into the MyGinnieMae portal. Once you are in there, all of, and your proper roles have been assigned, all of the systems that you need to access will be available to you. You will not need to log into GMAP 1.0. You will not need to log into GinnieNet. You will not need to log into the Access Management Console. Everything will be available to you because you have made it through that very secure front door. So that's what MyGinnieMae is. It's a house. It houses our existing legacy systems, so you no longer have to log into them directly. It houses our modernized applications, and as we continue to modernize, we will put new functionality and new applications in MyGinnieMae for you to access. But you will do that with your username, your password, and a one-time PIN. Okay, next slide. Okay, so why are we making the change? There is one primary reason for making the change, and it's security. We have to adhere to federal security requirements, and our legacy systems don't do that. And so we're introducing the modernized portal in order to introduce additional security and to meet those security requirements. The nice thing about MyGinnieMae in times like these is that it is web-based, so it's conducive to remote work situations, and it is more secure. So while we're all working from our personal internet connections, MyGinnieMae does provide additional security. It makes it harder for you to get hacked and for people to get in and hijack your business transactions. So there are a lot of good reasons for why we want to make the move to MyGinnieMae, but they're primarily about security. And now is no better time than any to get all of our folks in the portal to make sure that your business transactions and the business that you're doing is secure. It introduces single sign-on. As I mentioned, that means that you have just one username and one password to log into all of the all the systems that are housed in MyGinnieMae. It introduces multi-factor authentication. You have experienced this in your daily lives, whether it's personal or whether it's work. There's a PIN that gets generated. Sometimes it's sent to your phone, to your email, and that PIN is an additional factor that allows you to get into the system. So we didn't have that in our legacy systems, but it is a feature in MyGinnieMae. So again, your username, your password, and a one-time PIN will get you into the portal. How you are provided access is based on functional roles. Functional roles are roles that have been created based on your business functions. And when that role is assigned to you, all of the applications that you need access to come with it. This is beneficial because as we continue to modernize and we add functionality to functional roles, you as organization administrators do not have to go back and check to see who needs this new access. All of that is handed to you through the system. You will get notifications and everything gets pushed based on the functional roles that you've assigned to the users in your organization. So there's no need for you to keep up with any new systems, changes, and enhancements that GinnieMae is rolling out. You'll be made aware as that functionality is added to those functional roles. There's also an invitation model. So as you invite people in your organization to register for an account in the portal, there's an audit trail. It'll track every step of the way, create audit points so that you know who has access to the system, what access they've been assigned, and when they're accessing the system. So, you know, there's a nice model there to register your users that give you that audit trail and reports that you can access in order to see what's happening. Next slide. So how is it changing? How is legacy and logging directly into legacy different from MyGinnieMae and how we interact and deal with MyGinnieMae? Well, here's a quick rundown. In our legacy environment, GinnieMae admins at the Bank of New York provided access to each of the users in the system. That's no longer true. Now you, the administrator, the organization administrator, formerly known as a security officer and enrollment administrator, will provide that access to your users. You're closer to them, you know what's going on in your organization better than we do, and so it only makes sense for you to provide them with the access that they need. In our legacy environment, issuers provided access to their sub-servicers. This is no longer true. Sub-servicers have their own organization administrators and they are set up to onboard their own employees. You as an issuer, if I have any issuers on the line, do not need to do anything to provide sub-servicers access. They're able to manage that all on their own, and we know that they are sub-servicing for you based on the 11707, and we set that up behind the scenes. In our legacy systems, you could go directly to those systems at, GinnieNet and GMEP to log into them with your old credentials. In MyGinnieMae, you now log in through MyGinnieMae to get to those very same systems. They're just sit behind a more secure portal. So even though, it's the same system access, it's a more secure way of getting to them. And it does provide additional security to those business transactions. In Legacy, you only needed a username and a password to get in. In MyGinnieMae, you must also enter a one-time PIN. In our legacy systems, access, and how you access those systems was identified by applications. You needed to know each application and each module that you needed access to, or that your users needed access to. This is no longer true in MyGinnieMae. You understand what the person's business functions are. You assign the functional role that is most closest connected to those business functions. And all the systems and applications that user needs will come with that functional role assignment. So as we continue to modernize and we introduce, a document custodian module, assuming that you have set up your users properly and they have been set up by their business functions, there's absolutely, I shouldn't say absolutely, there's not really anything that you as an organization administrator needs to do to make sure that they continue to have the access that they need as we modernize in the portal. In the legacy systems, there was a separate username and password for each system. In our modernized environment, there's just one username and one password. If you happen to be an RSA token holder, when you go to use that RSA token and it asks for your username, it's the same username you use to log into the portal, which is your email address. So it really is just one username for everything you need to do in the system. In legacy, password and user profile management activities were done by GinnieMae admins at the Bank of New York Mellon. In our modernized portal, there are a lot of self-service features. If a user has forgotten their password, they can reset that on their own. If they've gotten locked out of the system or they need a profile attribute updated, like a phone number, they can actually update their phone number on their own. If they've gotten locked out of the system, they can reach out to you as an organization administrator to help get them back into the system or to update some of those account attributes. So there's a lot more that the users can do on their own, and then the primary functions of managing and maintaining that account now reside with the organization administrators, no longer with the operations administrator, who is the Bank of New York Mellon on behalf of GinnieMae. Next slide. So now that I've thrown out a bunch of names here about roles, let's explain what they are. So this training is for organization administrators. The organization administrators are privileged users in MyGinnieMae that were known as security officers or enrollment administrators in our legacy systems. You have the ability to bring new users from your organization into MyGinnieMae. You have the ability to assign them functional roles, which dictate the access that they have and what systems they can access. And you're also responsible for making sure that no user in your organization has more access than they need. We adhere to the least privilege principle, which means that you should be lining up the access that people have with their actual business functions and responsibilities. If you have folks that have multiple responsibilities, it's fine for them to have multiple functional roles. But again, you don't want anyone to have more access than is required. If someone's role has changed, if they've left your organization, you would know better than we would, and it's on you as the organization administrator to keep up with those changes in your own organizations and to disable accounts and manage user access appropriately. Maybe you need to remove a functional role or add a new or different functional role. These are all things that we trust you to keep up with within your own organizations and to manage so that your users have been matched with the proper access. So you are the first line of defense as an organization administrator. You are managing end users in your own organization. An end user is anyone who needs access to a system to do business with GinnieMae. Those systems are GMAP 1.0, GinnieNet, our modernized pool delivery modules, so on and so forth. So if you're actually conducting a business transaction, as many of you do in GinnieNet, when you're doing that, you are acting as an end user. You need a functional role assigned to you in order to be able to access those business applications. So the key difference here is that our organization administrators are privileged users that have the ability to access what's called the Access Management Console to onboard and manage end user accounts. If you are an organization administrator that also needs to access a GinnieMae business application such as GinnieNet, you will have to be assigned an end user functional role to do that. This gets applied to the same account. So you still only have one username and one password to log into the system. The difference is that when you are acting as an organization administrator and going into the Access Management Console to do work, your administrative work, you're acting as an organization administrator. And in order to get to those business applications like GinnieNet, you will have to have a functional role assigned by other organization administrators so that you can act as an end user in GinnieMae business systems. So that's just a little bit of a difference there. Now the operations administrator at the top of this chart, those are the folks at the Bank of New York Mellon on behalf of GinnieMae that you've been accustomed to dealing with to help you get access to our systems and to troubleshoot items as you're doing business. They have oversight responsibilities in the MyGinnieMae portal. So they play a very, very important role, and they have a lot of knowledge about the portal and are able to talk you through different things that you might need to complete inside of the portal, but they cannot conduct business, or manage end user accounts on your behalf. So that's just an important thing to note about the operations administrator. They're there to inform you and to assist you and to provide general oversight in the portal, but they cannot conduct any of these actions on your behalf. So it's really important that you take the time here today to learn what it is that you need to do inside of your role as an organization administrator. Next slide. So what are these functional roles? I've been throwing this around. Functional roles, as I mentioned, are access-based roles, and they're access-based roles based on the business activities of each user. Here on this sheet are some examples of some functional roles. We have a functional role matrix that is published on GinnieMae.gov in the modernization section. But you can see here that we have, for example, for single family at the top two, we have single family loan delivery and pooling basic user. We have single family loan delivery and pooling authorized signer. These are the folks at single family issuer shops that are going to be responsible for uploading and entering pool and loan information, and they're the ones that can enter those transactions. The basic user can get them staged, but it's the authorized signer who has an RSA token and is listed on the HUD 11702 that can actually transmit or submit that pool for issuance. And so what happens is you as the organization administrator identify what role and what business functions each user in your organization has. You assign the proper role, and all of the systems that they need access to complete these duties will be provided to them. You don't have to go in and check to make sure that they've gotten access to the right modules and the right certifications and the right entitlements. We've done all of that for you. You just need to connect them with the correct functional role. The functional roles for document custodians are listed in the functional role matrix that is published on the GinnieMae website in the modernization section. Okay, next slide. So again, here are some differences in terms of the privileges and responsibilities of each user versus you as the organization administrator. So as the org admin, you can send registrations to your users to create accounts in the portal. You could approve or reject those registrations after the user has completed them. You can request a functional role or functional roles for users and approve or reject those functional role requests. You can lock, unlock, enable, and disable user accounts as folks have leave your organization or have temporary leaves of absence, or there are other reasons that you might need to manage that access for them. You're also able to assist them with updating some account attributes and deregistering from a thing that we'll talk about later, an application we'll talk about later, which is the Oracle Mobile Authenticator. So those are all actions that you can take and are responsible for taking for end users in your organization. Now you can also see that there are some things that users can do on their own. We call that self-service. If a user has forgotten their password, they can actually select a link on the login screen to reset that on their own. They can change their password on their own. They can also register and deregister from the Oracle Mobile Authenticator on their own. And there are some account attributes that they can update on their own, such as a business title or a phone number. But there's one important account attribute that you must assist them with, and that is the RSA token. At the time that your users complete their invitation to register for an account in MyGinnieMae, they will have the option to enter an RSA token number. If they do not do so at that time, they'll need to contact you, the organization administrator, for you to add that information to their account attributes. So there are some things that they can do on their own, but that's one important thing that they cannot do on their own if they don't do it at the time that they register. I also want to mention that far right column, your operations administrator at the Bank of New York Mellon on behalf of GinnieMae. As you can see, they have one lonely little blue star in the bottom of that list. They are responsible for what is called final acknowledgement of access requests. So as you are requesting access for your users in your organization, there's one final step for the operations administrator to finalize or acknowledge that request before the user has access to GinnieMae business applications. This is the only item that the operations administrator at the Bank of New York Mellon on behalf of GinnieMae can take to manage end user accounts in your organization. They cannot unlock and reset passwords for your users. They cannot assign or reject they cannot approve or reject functional roles for your users. They cannot do any of those things. That is all the responsibility of the organization administrators within your organization. Next slide. So I'm going to skip past this because we actually do a demonstration video on how to register for your own account. But you will know that tomorrow the operations administrators at the Bank of New York Mellon are going to be sending emails to each of the organization administrators in Wave 5. So you're going to get an email invitation that has a link in it. You select that registration link and complete a registration form. We'll show you again in the video demonstration here shortly, but it's important that you know that link is only valid for 24 hours. So those links, those emails will be sent tomorrow. You will have 24 hours to complete that invitation. If you do not complete it in that time frame, the link will no longer be valid. You'll have to contact the operations administrator for a new link in order for you to register for an account in the portal. That is for the organization administrators of Wave 5. You will get your email invitations tomorrow. But it is also important for you to know that as you're onboarding your own users into the portal, those invitations that you are sending will only be valid for 24 hours. So if you have users that are not in the office or able to access their email in order to complete that form, you need to know that because that link will only be valid for 24 hours. Next slide. Next slide. So this is the Access Management Console. Once you have been given an account in MyGinnieMae by the Operations Administrator as a privileged user, you'll have access to the Access Management Console. It is the application that you will use, or the interface module that you will use to onboard and manage user accounts for your organization. It's where you will go to access reports. So it is important that you know that today we're going to talk to you about how to get your account established, how to navigate to that Access Management Console, and then how to navigate to the new user registration tile in the Access Management Console so that you can begin to onboard your own users. Okay, next slide. So here's the onboarding workflow. A few things that I want to explain to you. In order to create an account for an end user in the portal, and in order to assign functional roles, there are two workflows involved: the registration workflow to create the account and the access workflow to assign the functional role. Each of those workflows have both a requesting function and an approving function. What this means is there is a separation of duties in creating an account and assigning access to any end user. It requires a minimum of 2 organization administrators. We're going to talk through that workflow quickly. So it starts on the far left side of the screen with that gray person who is an organization administrator. They're going to request send a registration request to an end user. This is done through MyGinnieMae, and the end user receives an email notification with that link that we just talked about to complete a new user registration form. They must do that within 24 hours of receiving that email invitation. Once the user has completed that form and submitted it, a second organization administrator, that little blue person, has to go in and approve that registration request. Okay, if there's a problem with the request, some information appears to be incorrect, you can reject it and start over. But assuming that everything has been entered correctly, the second organization administrator will approve that registration request, thereby creating an account in MyGinnieMae. Please note the user will not be able to access any GinnieMae business applications at this time because you've not conducted the access workflow. So as soon as the organization administrator approves the creation of the account, they should immediately proceed to request a functional role for the end user, okay? Once they have requested a functional role for the end user, another org admin, meaning not the one who made the request, but another org admin will come in and either reject or approve that functional role request, okay? Once all of those steps have been completed properly, the operations administrator completes the final acknowledgement of that user's access request. And once that's been acknowledged, the user will receive 2 emails, one welcoming them to the portal, and the second informing them that functional roles have been assigned and what functional roles they have received. Okay, then and only then will the user be able to go into MyGinnieMae and access GinnieMae business applications. If you are an organization administrator that needs a functional role assigned to them, after your account has been created, You will still need 2 organization administrators to conduct the access workflow. You will need 1 organization administrator to request a functional role for you. You will need a 2nd organization administrator to approve that functional role for you. You cannot participate in your own account management. So if you are an organization administrator that needs a functional role assigned, you will need 2 other organization administrators to request and approve that access for you. Okay? So again, we are going to do a question and answer session at the end of this. If that confused you or you have questions, do not hesitate to ask when we get to that piece. Next slide. So now we have a video demonstration to show you what in the system, what I just talked about.
The user shall begin by navigating the registration that you see on this screen, which is from do-not-reply_access@GinnieMae.gov. And in the message, there will be a registration link, as you can see. This will open up a web browser in a window and will take you to the new user registration form. Now, do note there are times when you are blocked from opening a browser. You will have to manually copy the link and paste it to your desired browser. So here we'll go to our browser and paste the URL. Okay, so now you guys can see the new user registration form, and there are several fields in this form will already be populated with information, as you can see, and it's grayed out. The user should double check this information to make sure that the name and the email address is correct. And if not, please notify the operations admin to resend a registration with the correct information. Now, here you will be able to enter your title. In this case, it's Mr., but you can change it to your preference. Then we enter our work number. You will then be able to enter your mobile phone number, which is optional. Then you enter your password, and you confirm your password. Now, please note, if you have a RSA token issued with GinnieMae Business System, you will want to select yes to the RSA token indicator and enter the token serial number in the corresponding field. If you do not have a token or access to the token serial number at the time, you can select no. And before moving on, you would then have to agree to the terms and condition and select the box and go over the rules and behaviors. And once you agree, you click yes and accept the privacy policy. And once you agree, you click yes. And once that's done and you're satisfied with the information you have on the screen, you can now go ahead and click finish. Now, to log into MyGinnieMae, please navigate on the URL, enter my.GinnieMae.gov using the browser of your choice. once you land on MyGinnieMae page, you will then enter your username and password. And this is the user email address and password that was established during the registration form we just seen. Here, once we click Login, you will land onto the multi-factor authentication page where you must enter your one-time PIN or OTP. Now, do note the first time you enter, your OTP will be sent to your email address. As you can see here, we do have a second option which says to enter through one-time PIN from Oracle Mobile Authenticator. This is when the user is registered with the Oracle Mobile Authenticator application. So we will select 1. And once we select our desired method of our OTP delivery, we then enter our one-time PIN. Now, do know, if you are not registered with OMA, you do have the option to register through the Oracle Mobile Authenticator instructions that you see here. So here you can see when you enter your one-time PIN, this is the page we will enter. And if it's your first time entering the system, please note you are required to select your home organization. And you do this by clicking under your name. And once you click, you will then have a drop-down with your issuer ID. And you will select that. And once you do, the page will refresh and you will see the information that we currently see on the system now. Here you will have your banner that you see on this screen, and the carousel, which will rotate to give you crucial information from the system and other necessary details below. For example, your pool data, or we have other widgets with information specific to you and your needs. Over here, we will also have the option to single sign on to their business applications. And again, this is based on your role in your organization. So if you do have access to GinnieNet, you will click on Tools, and from the drop-down, you will have the option to click on GinnieNet. And once you click on GinnieNet, you will be taken to GinnieNet page. And the same goes for GMAP1 application. So if you are to, say, do reporting, you can click on RFS and it'll single sign you on to GMAP1 to the appropriate application.
Okay. So we're going to go back to the training overview now. Couple things. One thing that I want to highlight that was discussed in the video, folks, that sometimes people miss is that the very first time you log into MyGinnieMae, it's important that you go and select that home org. So it's very important that you go to My Profile to select that home organization so that you can, those business applications that you need to access will properly display. That's just the first time that you log in, but both you as an organization administrator and your end users will need to select that home org the first time in order to avoid trouble when you're trying to navigate the portal. So I am, as I mentioned earlier, joined today by Wade Gale and Tawhid Ali of the Bank of New York Mellon. And right now I'm going to wake up Wade Gale to have him give you some troubleshooting tips. Wade?
Good afternoon, Letitia. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. Just want to make sure I'm not speaking on mute. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. And I know everybody is trying their best to enjoy or make the best of the situation we're in. So let's continue with the with the MyGinnieMae training, and I'm just going to talk to the org admins. Of course, now you realize you're now called org admins. In the old world, we're all used to the enrollment officer or security officer, so this is your new title now, the org admin. You'll be referenced as. Just some errors, warning you might see when you're actually sending out an invite to one of your end users. And one of the first one we want to talk about is email already registered issue. You might be sending an email to Wade Gale, and maybe you, just by mistake, you weren't aware that Wade was already enrolled, so you went in and set up the user's name, their title and everything, and then you put in the email address. And when you put in that email address, you'll notice you'll get a little red box around the email section, and you'll notice there's a message that says the email address is already registered in the system. So that is saying once that email is in the system, you cannot send another email to Wade Gale for a registration. So that is one thing you might want to look out for. You might get it a couple times if you decide, if you haven't been paying attention, that you have sent out an end user invite to that person already and you're trying to do it again. You'll get a warning saying that in red that email is already on the system. So that is something you just want to look out for. Next slide, please. Okay, the next one is sending repeat invites. And this is just a warning. You might have sent something to a end user, but somehow you didn't check that if that end user was around. Maybe the end user might have decided to take some time off. So Letitia had mentioned earlier, as part of the process, the flow, once you send an invite, it expires in 24 hours. So if you send an invite to an end user and no response, you can send another one. And if you still send another one and that person has responded, you can send a third one. But after the third one, you'll be getting some form of warning telling you that you have sent three invites. So what I'll suggest, if you send the first one and you realize that it expires, before you even try and send the second one, maybe just try and reach out to that person. Maybe that person is not even aware. Maybe those invites are going into their junk mail. So that is something you might have to even check out too, to make sure because that happens to some of our users that have actually is now enrolled on MyGinnieMae. That information goes to their junk mail, so they're not aware that an invite was sent. So those are some of the things they can look for. So after 3 invites, you're going to get a warning saying you have actually sent 3 invites. So just a warning, nothing's going to stop you from doing that, but you just want to be careful. Check out before you actually send the second or the third, just to make sure there's someone there to accept that in that 24-hour time span. Next screen, please. Okay, now you'll get after, of course, you ignore the third one, so you went again and sent a 4th one. And that one person, that end user, still did not respond. Guess what? They're homesick. So you weren't aware. So everything you sent got expired. And you decide to send a 5th one. So when sending a new registration invitation to an end user, if an invitation has already been sent to the user email and a total of 5 times, the email address will be flagged and additional requests cannot be sent. So after 5 email, you cannot send another one to that end user. And in order to send another invite to that end user, action is required from the operation admin group. So what that happened, that becomes now a task for us at BNY as the operation admin. So I hope you wouldn't get to that 5 invite, because if you do, we have to end up doing some magic behind the scenes to clear whatever happens, so that allows you to actually send another invite. The most important thing with the invite, check for the email address. Make sure you're not sending a second one to to an end user because you're going to get a warning there. If you send 3, you're going to get a warning so you have sent 3. So you want to look out for that. If you do send 5, you're going to get a warning saying you have sent 5, and it won't allow you to send another until you get in touch with us to clear that behind the scenes. So those are some of the things you're going to look out for, and you might actually experience them as part of your enrollment process for your end users. Next slide, please. I think I am done, and I think it's all Letitia again. Thank you, everyone.
Letitia, real quick, I think we have another video for assigning functional roles. You want to go through that now or this slide first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go through that one now. Thank you. So folks, we're going to pull up another video that now that you've learned how to respond to your own registration invitation is going to walk you through how to send registration invitations, which will help some of that stuff that we just said make sense.
So if you go under Tools, you will see Access Management Console option here. So we will click on the link and a warning pop-up will show. Here you will click yes, and once you click yes, it will take you to Access Management Console. Now here you will see we have 4 tiles that the org administrator will see. First, starting with the new user registration. Then we have access request, pending approval, and lastly, user management. We'll now show how we send an invitation to an end user to register with MyGinnieMae. And we do this by first clicking on the new user registration tile. Once you're here, you click on application. And once you click on application, you will see the user registration link, which you will then click, and a pop-up will appear. Here you will see the user request form, which you will fill out, starting with the title. Once you enter your title, you will then enter your first name. If there is a middle name, you will then enter, and then your last name. Next, we enter the job title and the org ID. And here we will put in the end user's email. Now do note that if the user is already registered in the MyGinnieMae portal, there will be an error message that will prompt. So we see here Wade is putting a email account that's already existing, and you see the red box. So this is a way of knowing that if the user is already registered to not enter and enter the correct email. So we'll then correct this to the appropriate email, and the system will validate, and we will not see the error message. Now that it's corrected and we're satisfied with the information we put, we will then click Submit. And now the registration is submitted. We would go to Pending Approval tile. Here you can see the user registration approval and the access request approval option. And just like we saw earlier, we do have a user that has been registered with the first org admin, and now the second org admin will go in and will have the option to either reject the registration or approve. So you can here verify the detail of the user, and if you are satisfied, go ahead, click Approve Registration. And once you click Approve, you will then be prompted to confirm. Go ahead and please confirm. And now the user is registered. So the next step that we will show is how we give a functional role to this user. And to do this, we will go back. And here, once we go back to give functional role, we will click on the access request tile. Once we're inside access request tile, we will look for the user that we registered. So here on the bottom, you can see John Wade with the email that we used to register. We will select this user by clicking on their name. Once we click the user's name, we will then select the organization we want to give them access to. So for our case, it is 3153. Once we select, we then click Assign Role. Now you will see all the options, the functional roles that are available to give out for this issuer. And for today's demonstration purposes, we will select the authorized signer. So we can select MF Loan Delivery and Pooling Authorized Signer. And if the user requires additional functional role, we can also select the desired roles. And once we are satisfied with the roles that we're giving, we can then click Assign Role on the bottom right. And to note, there is description to these functional roles. So if you do not know what these functional role means, you do get a description to the right. And once we're satisfied, we click Submit. Here you will see all the entities that goes within the functional role. Then we go to Pending Approval tile. Here as the second org administrator, we will see under Access Request Approval, the user and the functional role pending. Okay, so you can now see the request. You will have the request ID, the functional role, the organization, the user email, and the status. So here you can see it's in pending status, waiting for the second administrator to approve. And here again, you will see the detail of the functional role with the username. And once you are satisfied with the detail, you can either reject it or approve. So we will go ahead and approve this and confirm it. The functional role is now approved. Now please note, after this step, the operations admin will have to then go in and finalize the role, as mentioned previously. And once the role is finalized, we can then go into the user management tile that we saw. So if Wade, you can go back and click on the user management tile. Here, we will have the option to see the user's detail and the status of their functional roles. So here you can see all the users' name, their email, and their organization. And the reason we do see multiple accounts here is because multiple users are registered under this organization. So the account that we just recently approved, functional role, we can click on that person's name and it'll take us to their detail. Here you can see, if you can scroll up under the user management tab here, you can see the user's display name. You can see their email address or their login ID, their title, first name, middle, last name. Here, do note that the org admin will have the option to add the RSA token detail. Underneath, we will see their email, mobile number, work number, and extension, along with the organization information, their job title.
Thank you, Ian, for playing that video. Sorry, folks, we were a little out of order there in terms of our troubleshooting items, but hopefully those points were explained in a way that they made sense. And do keep in mind that in just a moment we will open for Q&A. So if something isn't, quite connecting for you or aligning, we're happy to answer your questions. I do know there are some folks that are on as well that have questions about their own accounts, and we'll do our best to address those questions as well. So a couple things to help prepare you for onboarding end users of your organization. The first thing is to remember that the MBS guide does require a minimum of 2 administrators, but because of the workflow, we are strongly recommending that you have no fewer than 3. If you find a user in urgent need of access to the portal, it's gonna require an organization administrator to approve access and another one to request access and another one to approve. And you don't want to be in a position where someone's not available and that user cannot get access to the portal. So again, we do recommend a minimum of 3 organization administrators. Do remember those users must be listed on the form. I'm sorry, I forgot I was talking to my document custodians. If you are a document custodian and you need an organization administrator added, please contact MyGinnieMae customer support. Their contact information will be provided to you in a little bit. And there is a form for you to complete to have those users added as organization administrators. Again, organization administrators are not permitted to manage their own account access. So you would need 2 other organization administrators to do that if that org admin needed access to business systems such as GinnieNet. A couple of other things for you and for your end users to know about the portal. The portal is supported by 3 web browsers: Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, and Mozilla Firefox. Those are the only 3 supported web browsers. Now you will know that there are some functions in our legacy systems that will only work properly in Internet Explorer, such as curtailments. But Google Chrome is the preferred browser for MyGinnieMae. So the bottom line is as you're navigating the portal, if things are not displaying properly or you're having some navigational issues, it is recommended that you close the browser and try a different one. But as we continue to modernize, Google Chrome will be the most efficient browser for you to use in navigating MyGinnieMae. Okay. Also note that regardless of what web browser you're using, you must disable pop-up blockers. Please listen to me. You must disable pop-up blockers in your web browser. If you do not do this, you are going to have problems, I promise. You will not be able to log into the portal. Messages will not pop up and display for you. You will have problems. You must disable the pop-up blockers for my.ginniemay.gov in order for you to be able to navigate MyGinnieMae portal properly. So please, as you begin to onboard your users, if they are coming with questions and problems and navigational issues, I promise you 9 times out of 10, it is going to be solved by disabling those pop-up blockers, okay? Next slide. Okay, so here's what you need to onboard end users in the portal. You're going to need to know their email address. You're going to need to know your document custodian name, your document custodian ID, their job title, possibly their phone number. If they have an RSA token, they can enter that at the time that the end user complete that form. So you don't actually need to have that on hand at the time that you register them. But those are the pieces of information that you're going to need in order to onboard a user into the portal. Now, we do have some user lists available out of our legacy systems that we will send to you that will indicate for you who is already active in our legacy systems within your organization to help make this job a little bit easier for you. But you're going to want to collect this information on behalf of each user that you want to create an account for in MyGinnieMae. It's also a good time to review the functional role matrix that's on the GinnieMae website to get a sense of what functional role you're going to want to assign to each user that aligns with their business functions. Some tips: do not send registration invitations to people that you know to be out of the office or unavailable. Those invitations do expire in 24 hours. Those links are only valid for 24 hours. So generally, you're just going to want to make sure that those users are going to be in the office. Fridays, unless you know and have spoken to an end user, are generally a bad day to send those invitations, because if they don't get them that day, they will not get them until after they are expired. So just a couple of tips in terms of, timing of, sending invitations. Also, please do not, and please inform your end users, do not bookmark the login page. There is what's called the public landing page at my.ginniemae.gov. When you go there, it displays a marquee that gives you key information about whether the portal has new updates, information, if the portal is going to be down and out of service. That is where we host that information. And I need for you to see that information, first of all, but also there is where you hit a button to log in to MyGinnieMae. And if you do not, if you go directly to that login page, you will have some navigational issues. Do not bookmark that page. Please start at my.ginniemae.gov and hit the login button from there, okay? The other thing I need you to know, as you are assigning functional roles, excuse me for just 1 minute. As you are assigning functional roles, please note that for many roles, there is a basic user functional role so that folks can input data and information and stage it, if you will, so that an authorized signer who has an RSA token and is listed on the HUD 11702 can come back and submit or certify. So you do not need to assign both of those roles to a user. When you are assigning the authorized signer functional role, all of the functions of a basic user are included, plus the ability to certify or submit. If you assign both of those functional roles, it's an indication to us that you have not properly assigned functional roles, and they might be rejected, okay? So one thing that is a strong red flag is if you assign every single functional role to a user. It's a clear indication to us that you've not taken the time to identify the proper access for that individual. And we will likely reject, when it's time to acknowledge that access, we will likely reject that user's access. So please be careful and be intentional about the access you are assigning. Do not assign both a basic user and authorized signer functional role. Do not assign all functional roles. Take the time to make sure you understand your user's business functions and responsibilities and assign the roles that go with that function. If you have questions about the functional roles, you're absolutely welcome to ask us any questions you might have. You can send those into GinnieMae customer support. You can join us on our Thursday weekly listening sessions. They're an open forum to ask questions of that nature, but please do ask as opposed to assigning all or the incorrect functional roles, okay? And then refer to the user manuals on ginniemae.gov. If you go to ginniemae.gov and hover over issuers and drop down under issuer training, that's where the modernization page exists. We have posted user manuals, quick reference cards, all of the training recordings the overviews from these trainings, the decks from these trainings. There's a plethora of resources there, including the call details for our weekly Thursday listening sessions, which will resume on May 7th. And use that information to equip yourself so that you can manage the portal, manage many of these issues. There are step-by-step instructions in the Access Management Console user manual for you as organization administrators on how to conduct a lot of these functions. So take the time to take a look. There's actually really good information out there that will prevent you from having to make an unnecessary phone call or email. Next slide. Okay, so here's what's next. Tomorrow, for my Wave 5 organization administrators, you will receive an email to register for an account in MyGinnieMae. Respond within 24 hours, okay? If you're not able to respond tomorrow because you don't have access to your email, contact GinnieMae customer support when you return to the office so they can send a new invitation. Once your account has been established and you have the access that you need, you're going to want to begin to onboard your end users. Now, we have a target date for my Wave 5 organizations. By the beginning of August, you will need to have your users in MyGinnieMae. Now, keeping in mind that MyGinnieMae is all about additional security. And it behooves you to get your users in as quickly as possible and to have them navigate the portal and logging in to do business through MyGinnieMae, because it creates an additional layer of security, okay? So we do encourage you to get started and to utilize MyGinnieMae as quickly as possible. But there is a date by which you must be in MyGinnieMae, and you're going to want to knock all of this out before the beginning of August, okay? I believe the date that is listed online is August 10th. However, there might be an APM that comes out that actually sets that date at August 1st. So either way, it will be clearly communicated to you in advance of you reaching that point in time. However, you need to pay attention now, get your users in the portal, and make sure that they're accessing GinnieNet through MyGinnieMae as opposed to using their old legacy credentials, okay? Once you've created those user accounts, please make sure that your users continue to use MyGinnieMae. Going back and forth between the modernized portal and the legacy systems, using the new credentials and the old credentials can cause some problems, okay? And then encourage your users to attend MyGinnieMae training. For our document custodians, we're hosting a session on this Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. The details for that training event are on the modernization page in GinnieMae.gov. Encourage your end users to participate in training, and we'll talk to them about what the portal is and how they can access it. So encourage them to attend the training on Thursday, April 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. As I mentioned, there are also weekly listening sessions each Thursday, starting up again on May 7th, that you can join us for. They're kind of like open office hours where we take the time to answer your questions. We have technical experts available so that you can ask us any questions, get some feedback and best practices. And those sessions tend to be really helpful. Also to hear from your own peers on how they're navigating the portal. And then check the modernization page. We will be updating regularly. We have new user manuals that'll be coming out here in the next week or so. We've just recently updated the functional role matrix. For my document custodians, we've put in some new functionality over the weekend that makes it easier for you to select issuer IDs as you're trying to manage the different issuers that you do business with. So we're constantly trying to improve and add, new functionality, which means user materials are constantly being updated. And so it's good to kind of check back often to make sure you've got the latest information. So if after all of that, you still need some assistance, know that Wade Gale and his team at the Bank of New York Mellon on behalf of GinnieMae are happy to assist. You can reach them at 1-833-GNMA-HELP. That's 1-833-466-2435. Or you can also hit them at GinnieMae1@bnymellon.com. Okay. So I think it's about time for a question and answer session. Before we begin, I do want to draw your attention to the chat box. Ian is about to post a link to a survey. We take your feedback very seriously. So if you have feedback for us on today's session, additional information that you would like for us to provide training or resources on, any feedback whatsoever, please put it in that survey. He's gonna type the link in that chat box so that you can go to the survey and complete that. We really appreciate your feedback. The results from our training surveys go all the way up to the president of GinnieMae. We communicate this information all the way up the chain, and so appreciate you taking the time to fill that out. So we are about to open up for Q&A. A couple things you need to know, folks. If you join today's session using your computer audio, at the bottom of your screen there is an opportunity for you to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, it tells us that you want to ask a question, and we will unmute your line so you can do that. If you join today's session over a telephone, you hit *9, and that will indicate for us that you would like us to unmute your line so you can ask the question over the phone line. Or you are welcome to type it in that Q&A box. If you go to the bottom of your screen, it says Q&A. If you click on that, you are welcome to type your question into the Q&A box that way. So again, if you joined the audio via your computer, raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. If you joined the audio on your phone line, hit *9, or go ahead and type that question into the Q&A so that we can answer those questions for you before we break. Okay.
Letitia, we got one question from Charles Wolf on the line.
Okay.
Charles, go ahead, Charles. You might have to unmute yourself on the bottom left of the Zoom.
Charles, are you on the line?
There you go. You should be able to talk now, Charles. I see you unmuted. Perhaps not. Charles, just FYI, if you're talking into your phone, hit *9. Sometimes if you dial in separately from the Zoom, we can come back.
Okay, I do have, I saw Charles typed a couple questions into the chat, so I'm going to try and hit those. And Charles, if that doesn't get at your question, go ahead and raise your hand again, and we'll make sure that we answer those. So Charles, it looks like you are a Wave 4 org admin, and you were asking about user lists. So the user lists for Wave 4 have already gone out. If you did not receive a user list, you can email CXG, that's Customer Experience Group, CXG at HUD.gov. That's for my Wave 4 organizations. If you did not receive that user list and you're an org admin, go ahead and send me an email, and we'll make sure that you get that user list. I'm also going to need your issuer ID so that I know which list you are requiring. Now for my Wave 5 org admins, yours have not gone out yet. So hold tight. We'll get to those probably tomorrow, and you'll get your user list then. Yeah, so that's CXG at HUD.gov if you do not get your user lists, okay? Let's see. Hopefully that answers your question, Charles. If not, go ahead and shoot me another message, and I'll answer again, okay, to make sure that we get the clarity that you need. Now, for my Wave 5 org admins, those registration invitations are going out tomorrow. If you believe you are an organization administrator and you do not receive an email invitation tomorrow, you can contact GinnieMae customer support on Wednesday. But do check your junk folder before you do that. So if you're expecting the invitation tomorrow and you're not seeing it, go on and check your junk folder to make sure that it's not sitting in junk, okay? But they'll be sending invitations out at some point during the day tomorrow. So for my Wave 5 org admins, my document custodian org admins, if you don't have those invitations tomorrow, go ahead and pick up the phone or shoot an email to GinnieMae customer support on Wednesday. Okay. Okay, so if you are a Wave 4 org admin and you haven't seen that registration invitation, that could mean that we do not have you listed as an org admin. Reach out to GinnieMae customer support to make sure that we've got you listed.
Nothing else on the line here.
Okay, I don't see, I think we got to that one, Charles. I don't see anything else in the chat. Again, *9 if you're on a phone line and would like to ask a question. Okay, anything new come in, Ian?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay, I don't see any questions coming in through the Q&A, and it doesn't appear that anybody's raising their hands right now. So hopefully that means we got you all the information that we needed to get to you. Hopefully you're not too overwhelmed. I can tell you that for the folks that I've actually had the privilege of overseeing them do some of these steps, they've been able to complete these actions before we can even tell them what the next step is. It's a very intuitive system, folks. And I think if you jump in and roll your sleeves up, you're gonna find that it's not that bad. So we look forward to, you know, assisting you through GinnieMae customer support. If you have questions about additional training or general information, the resources that are available, you can reach out to CXG. That's Customer Experience Group at HUD.gov, and we're happy to answer your questions in any way we can. Before you leave, don't forget to complete that survey, give us some feedback, let us know what other training and events might be helpful to you, any information we might have missed. Other than that, I invite you to come back to the session that we are hosting on May 11th. Today's session squarely focused on how you establish your own account and how you begin to register users in your organization. After those accounts are established, you're going to need some information on how you manage those accounts. How do you remove functional roles, add additional functional roles, lock, unlock? How do you change passwords? And how do you get to reports? And we're going to provide you that information in the next training. So join us again May 11th. We will talk to you about how to manage end user accounts once they've been established in MyGinnieMae. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please be healthy, be safe out there, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.